What's going on, everybody? This is Brad from the Ed Army, and as you can tell, we are focusing on Regulation Battle Volume 1, as we have this new event posted up by Bandai. So if you are getting ready to have or participate in these interesting store events, I do hope that you will enjoy this, as we are going to help you with a little bit of videos focusing around this specific format, as this may be the start of Bandai having brand new formats, not just for stores, but maybe possibly for bigger events, or for allowing stores to eventually host their own recurring and very different events so that you can get a variety. So we're going to be jumping into it, as today we're going to be talking about some of the insane boss Digimon that you will be able to use and possibly try out in Regulation Battle Volume 1. So we're going to start off, as we are locked into commons and uncommons, so this really does change up the way we're going to be playing this format if you are going to participate in these events, or just go ahead and try them out with your friends, because this is a fun way to deck build, but more importantly, it changes up a lot of the game for many reasons. A lot of the powerhouse decks are obviously going to be invalid for the format because they are in hollow slots for most of their cards, and even more importantly than that, they will not be able to play because most of their cards are obviously rares and above, so that kind of kills their ability to be in the format. However, we do have a lot of interesting decks, and we're going to start off with the color red, as we're going to be jumping in. As you can tell, what's good here, as we're going to be jumping in with red, like I said, as we have three that I really want to hone in on, but there are a pool of interesting level 6 Digimon you can use. Now, the reason I mention level 6 specifically going forward is that there are no level 7 Digimon available for this Battle Volume 1. Now, the main reason why is because there has never been a level 7 printed as an uncommon or common, and that's pretty interesting. And additionally, you have, pretty much locked in to level 6s as a whole. But we do have an interesting pool, as I'll start off here, as I have probably the one that I think will be experimented the most in most people's decks for red, and that is going to be Dino Rexmon. Now, Dino Rexmon is a very interesting card, because what makes it so unique is that one of the best decks for red going into the format, especially I think for red as a whole, is going to be Blitz, as the Blitz strategy and deck has been effectively left behind thanks to Bandai. They just kind of forgot to print more Blitz specific support to make the deck a bit more viable. It's mostly generic. It's a generic deck focusing on the Blitz keyword, but the reason why it's going to be so dominant in the Battle Volume 1 format, it's really just that all the Blitz cards are, for the most part, that are very good, that are still pretty playable, are uncommons and commons, so you will be able to pick everything up, because this deck is pretty much just collective of bulk cards, which is really cool. But Dino Rexmon is the epitome of that, carrying Blitz as its keyword, which means it is searchable in the strategy. But it has a very unique ability that during all turns, while this Digimon is obviously face up, its biggest strength is the fact that it is able to use its main skill of being able to go ahead and, it locks down your opponent's Digimon. So while they have one or more memory, sorry, just trying to make sure I read it correctly, they can't play Digimon with 6,000 DP or less, and this Digimon gains 4,000 DP. This is an all turns effect. So if you're probably wondering, well, why is that a good effect? Well, this is one of the few floodgate actual megas that we will see in the format. There are a few with some interesting effects, but this is one of the, and I mean it, the very few that will actually be able to have a floodgate effect. So this is something we won't be seeing a lot in the regulation, or at least for this volume 1. You won't be seeing that a lot in a lot of level 6s, but this one actually can floodgate sort of, so it is a good use tool, because there will not be ace Digimon. I think your biggest threats in this format is going to be stuff like security bombs, where people are going to probably be packing their security full of stuff, so you might have to be worrisome of that. But otherwise, I really think it's a good format for strategies like this that focus around Dino Rexmon, because they don't have to worry about that. Additionally, when it comes to Blitz, I have Pile Volkmon here, but this represents all of the Blitz level 6s, because there are a few that are in the uncommon and uncommon slot. Something like Z Greymon as well from BT5 is another option, but Pile Volkmon is the one that gets the biggest, I think, based on itself, because it gains 2,000 DP during your turn, so it getting to 13,000 and being a hard play cost 10 with 11,000 DP is important. Like I said, hard playing in this format might be a bit more viable, because giving your opponent a ton of memory in a format like this isn't the worst thing ever, but at the same time, this card actually can benefit by being a play cost 10 because something like, Mega Zoo that used to be available is something that also is a strategy that's probably somewhat viable in this upcoming format, the specific format, so it is cool. And then finally, I have one of the most generic kind of red level 6s that people will just slap in because it's good, and that's the Phoenixmon from EX1. So this one's just really good because it's secure attack +1 innately, and then when it attacks, it lets you draw 2. So the main reason that I would see people pilot around this card is that you just build up your stacks around it, give it really good inheritables, and try to let it hit really hard, and at the same time gain you a bunch of draws in return. So this is a very interesting card and definitely something you might want to focus on. Like I said, there's more red level 6s, but these are the ones that I think are specifically going to be honed into because they offer the most diversity for red, but simultaneously they fit into one of the best strategies in red for this format, so it will be important. Moving into blue's a bit interesting because it does have access to some very good level 6, but the key factor is what are you going to try to build around. So starting in what we have here first, one of the best cards I think among all the level 6s in terms of the variety that you get is Regalicusmon. So Regalicusmon is one of my favorite Digimon just based on its design, but what makes Regalicusmon so good in this format is that both of its level 6 printings have been in common slots, which is something that I did not know until I thought about it, because I have this card myself, which is hilarious. But the main reason the Regalicusmon is so strong in this specific format is that because of its ability, if you're playing BT10 or the one from BT5, from BT5, it really just depends on which one you want, because if you want the BT10 one, which I think is the best option, its ability to play out Digimon while your opponent has a Digimon with no sources is going to be extremely likely in this upcoming format, because since the format has been warped back on its head, a lot of people may be playing slower paced Digimon, which is basically kind of like how things were played in BT1 up until about BT4, where people were having vanillas or stuff like that, or hard playing Digimon that were about like 5 cost and lower. And with the lack of tamers in this format, you will probably see people hard play Digimon more. So something like Regalicusmon from BT10 can absolutely take advantage, because Aquatic in this format specifically is not unplayable. It is actually somewhat viable. The question is just if you are able to strip sources from opponent's Digimon, Regalicusmon is one of your best bosses because it can immediately deploy a lot of Digimon quickly and force your opponent on the back burner, because now, oh man, this person's board is very wide. Like I said, removal will be in the format, but only specific decks will be able to use removal very well. Moving into our next boss, I have Zheng Pengmon. Now, this one is interesting as this is the one from BT19. The reason Zheng Pengmon here is a very good option is because it's just a very solid Digimon all around, because of its ability to have security attack +1 and to having blocker, and its ability to suck up a Digimon basically on your field like the other Zheng Pen line and place it underneath to reduce its evolution cost by 3 is important, because there are no memory boosts in this format. There are no trainings in this format because they're all promo cards. You will be trying to find ways to get memory back as much as you can, and Zheng Penmon is one of these few Digimon that can reduce its Evo cost in terms of being able to give you more power in its effects. So that's why I have Zheng Penmon here. It is a fantastic Digimon to have. It is something you may want to look into when you're thinking about Volume 1. But also, one of my favorite Digimon that is available for this format is going to be Jumbo Gamimon. I think what makes Jumbo Gamimon so interesting as a card for this format is that its effects are just still really solid. Being able to, when it's suspended, or basically for the blocking effect, to play out a Digimon is just really strong, because in blue decks, you can just slap this in as like one of your last slots if you're just trying to find something, because inherently this card is just really, really good. Also, if I'm right, Homer Yoshida, which is the tamer for this card, is available for this format, because I do think it was an uncommon card, so do look into that, but I do think it's available, so do keep that in mind. You can play Homer for a lot of blue decks, but the point is, this card is just very good. Jumbo Gami is able to be a blocker. It's at 13,000 DP. Like I said, that threshold is actually going to be hard to beat in this format, because there isn't anything really that pushes past 13. So anything at 13,000 DP is a big threat to your opponent. But now let's move into yellow, as yellow actually boasts some pretty interesting stuff, as when we move into yellow, we're going to be seeing a very interesting lineup of Digimon, but we're starting off with yellow with probably one of the best decks I think the format will offer, and that's going to be the Edamon deck. So before I get into the other two, I just want to say Edamon is going to be probably one of the strongest decks in the format, only because that almost all of its cards are available to it, and it still boasts a very robust strategy. This is mostly because the Sukamon cards as well are also going to be in the kind of the common to uncommon slots, and most of the Edamons that are uncommon to common will really boost the strategy's potential because it's able to just simply play almost all of its cards, like I said. So this makes the deck a lot viable, or very viable for this format, and it's going to make it pretty broken when you think about it. Especially, I have the Metal Edamon here from BT11. This one has its on playing when Digivolving to allow you to play up to, I think it's like 7 cost total worth of Sukamon Digimon, and also Chumon is available to be used as like a memory blocker in this deck. So like I said, Edamon's going to be a very powerful option for the deck, or a deck for Volume 1, because like I said, all the cards are available. This is the deck that I learned a little bit about because I tried playing it, and I definitely can say Edamon is not a deck you sleep on, because in a slow format, this card will take advantage of your opponent because most people just don't know how to play against it. So this is a fantastic pick for Volume 1. So do understand this is a good deck. And yeah, just wanted to point it out because Edamon is one of the few decks that will have most of its support. So it's definitely worth picking up if you want a more cohesive strategy. Now, moving into the other two that we have here. First, I have Clavis Angemon. This one is from BT11. Now, the reason I have Clavis Angemon is that yellow is one of the colors that unfortunately I think suffers the most when we talk about Volume 1, because yellow pretty much as a solid color doesn't have really a lot of its best options. It really probably wants to have stuff kind of like the different Great Angels, but they're all rare and above, so you're kind of locked out of them. So you're basically working with whatever is not locked down, and we're basically playing what was like original yellow, like kind of like recovery control. And starting off with Clavis Angemon, the purpose of Clavis Angemon is that it is a deterrent for your opponent. So the reason it's a deterrent is that basically if they remove cards from your security stack, you give their Digimon minus 4,000 DP, and then when you're 5 or less, when you Digivolve into it, it gives you a recovery +1. This is designed mostly as a way to keep your opponent off guard, and it is one of the best, I think, yellow tools, because a lot of the yellow Digimon do give you recovery, but they don't give it to you in the same way. Like you have the original Magnadramon from like BT2, where you would hard play it for like 10 and get recovery +2. Yeah, you probably don't want to be playing that. But when it comes to Clavis, Clavis really does allow you to kind of stall down your opponent a bit if they're playing like Rookie Rush, which is something I might see in the format, which I'll talk about in another video. But more importantly for yellow, the other option that we have here is a BT1 goodie and oldie that does return here, as we have Slash Angemon. Now, Slash Angemon is a fantastic option for this deck. The main reason why is that it will definitely be a threat in this format because of how good it is. By giving a Digimon minus 8,000 DP, this was an effect that was terrifying during the BT1 format for yellow. It was one of its best tools. But in this format specifically, this will also be a very good tool because of how good that DP reduction is. So it is a very powerful card. You can pair this up with something like the Patamon from the starter deck all the way long ago. So you can have like DP reduction control and gain memory back. So it is an option for this format. But ultimately, Slash Angemon's here and is one of the best yellow options you will have access to in level 6s. Now moving into green. Green is interesting because it will probably be one of the best colors for the format, because a lot of green strategies have fantastic boss Digimon in the green color, but also are going to have most of their cards available, so you do have to keep that in mind. Moving into green, we'll start off with one of the ones I think is probably one of the most powerful, underrated, uncommon cards I've ever read, and that's going to be Titamon. Titamon from BT11. I remember reading this card thinking I'm surprised it was not a holo. However, I'm glad it's not. This card carries piercing as its main skill, but the most important fact is it allows you to suspend your opponent's Digimon when you trash specific amounts of cards, and then for each card that you suspend by that effect, you gain memory back. So it reduces its evo cost, which makes it a very good boss, but it's just such a good, powerful top end, because this thing will just run through stuff. It's at 12,000 DP, paired up with any DP buffs in green, and this card literally fits into any deck you want it to for green, but also can fit into purple, because it's a dual color card. So the key factor of Titamon is going to be wherever you want to play it or pilot around this thing, it will do damage. Now, we had a lot of green options, so I did have to forego many, but I did want to pick the ones that were most generic because there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of actual decent options for a format like this. Moving into the Eaglemon, this is the one from the ST18 starter deck. This is the Terramon starter deck. This one has Fortitude. This one's important because of its ability to suspend Digimon, so I always really like that, or return Digimon that are suspended. The main reason that this is going to be really good in the format is that there are a lot of cards you can pair this with in specifically green to suspend opponent's Digimon, then get into this card, Digivolve into it, let it bounce them back, and you can recklessly throw this thing into security. This is one of the, like I said, shows why Fortitude's such a good card or typing effect in a format like this, because you have to worry about security bombs. It's okay to run Eaglemon into security because it'll just play itself back. I really like that ability, and it makes a lot of people a little bit more safe in the format because green has access to, like I said, some really good, nasty things that a lot of people can't really take advantage of because they don't have as many of their card pool, but we have a lot of our card pool in green. Moving into probably one of the most also cohesive decks in the format, we have Leomon, so I have Saber Leo representing because it is the pretty much going to be one of the boss Digimon for that deck. Leomon will be an amazing threat for the format because it has almost all of its cards available in different ways. So it is a cohesive strategy in the format. So you will have to be worried because people playing Leomon will have access to more tools than most other decks. A lot of other decks may just be like hodgepodges of cards put together, like good stuff strategies. But Leomon will be one of the more cohesive archetype decks because it has a lot of its tools available and it will be a potent threat. So do watch out because Saber Leo will get into you. Very cool, very powerful. Moving into the color black. Black is going to be a very fun strategy to pilot in this format because it isn't the most nerfed, but it has the weirdest amount of options in terms of like it has variety. So we will talk about them here as we jump into it, starting off with the most important one being one of the ones I think is hilarious is this is going to be the Grand Locomon. So Grand Locomon from BT17. This one, I had to read this thing to know what it does. It is pretty good. So on play and when Digivolving, it will allow you to reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and it'll let you slot in specifically a level 5 or lower black Digimon card among them. However, at the end of the attack, it allows you to play out a level 5 and lower black machine Digimon specifically from its sources. So the cool factor about Grand Locomon is that once you get this thing online and start using that effect, it pretty much is just going to allow you, as long as it survives the security check, it will allow you to play back whatever you pulled out of its sources. So Black Machine may for sure be a massive archetype in this deck specifically, like as a strategy, what I may add. It just makes the deck a lot stronger because it will be a lot more interesting to actually pilot the strategy and give you a chance to use it. Additionally, because we have the BT17 Chaos Dramon, the Sons of Chaos one, available, Machine Dramon is a deck you can play in the format. It is a bit weird, but it is a form of a deck you can play. Machine Dramon is technically available because you have the common and uncommon ones, I think, from the what the heck is it called? The Millenniumon strategy. So you can use it. Also, like I said, Machine's going to be a massive archetype, I think, in this specific format because a lot of the machine cards are available and there are good boss Digimon, like I mentioned before, to fit around it. Additionally, one of the decks I have here as a funny holdover is going to be Raidenmon. So Raidenmon is actually a deck you can play in this format because Sujinmon, Fujinmon, Raijinmon, are all available to be played as uncommons. So you can actually hard play Raidenmons out to, Digicross into them. So you can absolutely do it. It's just, I just wanted to mention as an option because Black unfortunately lacks in that it doesn't have all the aggressive tools it needs in this format. However, it has a lot of interesting Digimon to really kind of pilot around and use. So it is going to be up to you, but you do have that there. Now, talking about purple, purple's interesting because purple has a variety of options. However, because we're in a nerfed format, you do have to take into account that there are a lot of stuff you will not be able to do. So it's ultimately up to like whatever is available, right? And purple is usually the best good stuff you can usually, get your hands on. So of those colors, we have a few. The one I have that's probably going to be the best in terms of just being generically good is going to be the Zanbamon from BT16. Now, the main reason I have this one is that for whatever reason, if you have dual color level 5s, it can reduce its evolution cost based around that colors. But more importantly, for every 2 colors in your opponent's trash, this Digimon gets 2000 DP and gains security attack +1. So I did want to mention this because there are going to be some decks that are dual color in the format. So Zanbamon is an interesting one because if your opponent at least has 2, which is not uncommon, this card will be able to gain security attack +1 and 2000 DP, putting it at the 14,000 DP threshold, making it a really good boss Digimon. It's just generic, but in purple, like I said, you really can just pick something on the top and push it hard before going to strategies. The next one I have is Skull Mammothmon from the ST16 starter deck. This is the purple one. This one's really interesting because I didn't know what it does, but when Digivolving, you draw 1 trash ones, and then anytime you have an effect that would trash cards in your hand, you may play 1 level 5 or lower purple Digimon card from your trash without paying the cost. So this card is going to be huge, I think, in this format because of how useful this is on many decks. I think this is going to be one of the toolbox megas, where a lot of times you'll find this on a deck that just wants to use good stuff, but wants to play it because it doesn't need it all the time, but definitely wants to pull opponents and being distracting them, like just going into this, playing out something, because it will proc itself with this effect, and then you're like, oh man, now I got another level, they got a level 5 on board and a level 6, this is a problem, and then they have to basically call out what you're doing. Finally, one of the most interesting ones I found was Pheromon, because Pheromon is a card that I remember seeing this card and thinking, oh, I hope it's good, but it was printed as like a common or uncommon, so I'd assumed that maybe it was going to have a very powered down effect. However, this card is actually very solid into the format. So why this card is good is simple. So its ability on play and when Digivolving is that it deletes a level 4 lower Digimon, so it does have spot removal. But more importantly, during your turn, once per turn, when an effect deletes another Digimon, you may play 1 level 5 or lower Digimon card with the Undead or Dark Animal trait from your trash without paying the cost. If you're realizing it, yes, very much like the starter deck, this card procs itself because once you delete something, you're going to proc that effect and play out something. Like I said, another generic, really good, because I think what purple is going to focus on in the format is control, but simultaneously board spamming, because its boss Digimon are very good at spamming. So you're going to want to try to focus on getting your trash set up, go for those big plays, get your Digimon deployed as quickly as you can, and then kind of wipe out your opponent's security by attacking them all at once. So it is very good. But guys, that is going to be it. This hasn't been the most extensive of all the boss Digimon, but I do think this is a good litmus test to show you what's going to be available for the format. Additionally, one of the most powerful archetypes is going to be the Ancient Digimon, but they're going to get their own video. So talking about it for volume 1, but the key factor is a lot of these decks are going to be nerfed down because of the restriction, but the key factor is you have some amazing boss Digimon to pilot around if you want to go this route and just kind of, play old-fashioned Digimon where you build up your stack. So it will be up to you, but this is what we have available for you, and you can go ahead and look into it as well if you want to see a more extensive list of Digimon available. But as always, this has been Brad from the Ed Army signing off, and for all of you out there, to sign on.